I've been talking every day something, some koans, little bit. And I'm still going to go like so. Continue, yeah, that's the right word. I was thinking fortsätta, but that's a wrong language. But nevertheless, we also have Shikantasa practice and a couple of other practices. And also, as it was mentioned, all of these practices are equally superb. So they have, of course, different characters. Like we people have different characters. But the Shikantasa, in a way, could be seen also like the absolute practice, since it really includes from the start everything, everything. There is no Shikantasa starts already fully grown up Buddha. So in a way I would say that whatever we start with and if years still running through the bridge, I mean water is running in Tonava River, time is passing, and eventually we will end up to Shikantasa. Because even if we have worked through all the koans, it sounds that there are many, but some people can work through them if they just put time enough and effort. So what then? Of course we can work them through again, which is not that bad idea. Or we can work them even 3 times or 4 times, or we can find another collection and someone who can help us and who can work with us with that. Or we can have our own koan, everyday koan. Shikantasa is everyday koan in a way. Somehow I, of course, because this tradition holds both practices, those main big practices like koan practice and Shikantasa practice, this little experience that I have this far as a Zen teacher, I've noticed that I like to a little bit use also koans with some people who work with Shikantasa, which is maybe a little bit unfair, but that's what I've been doing. Because I think we can use koans, I mean, we can. Koan is, okay, let's say so that Shikantasa is like a central railway station. And then there are those koan lines, koan trains that goes, but they will come back to central railway station anyway. So I think it is just can make a little excursion, we can take a little trip with koan and see somewhere something that we haven't visited ever before. But fundamentally they all returns to one. And this it's quite clear, like now day 4 in Sesshin, and that what is our main task? What is it that we are working with is something that is in front of us. So we could say that it's a present moment. It's a present moment that we are working with. Here and now. Here and now. That becomes somewhat clear, more clear day after day. Maybe first we have doubts even that what it is, this present moment. Is it really something important? But round after round, this smoke kind of disappears, and we start to think or feel or see and hear, and we start to have this idea, maybe it is here. Maybe it is actually here. But how can I be sure? How can I be sure that it is here? But thanks for the practice that we have been sitting silently. We haven't put energy much else. This has helped us to even without noticing it, it has helped us to leave behind those thoughts and ideas that were so dear just little time ago. They are not so important suddenly anymore. Actually, it might feel that our whole value system has changed. All those interests we had previous to this session suddenly feels like secondary. Oh, they weren't that important actually. What is more important, it's here. We are getting closer. We are starting to connect. That connection is Buddhism. That's how it was discovered under the Bodhi tree when Buddha touched the ground. He connected. And within that connection, Buddha could say that each one of us, every being, everything is connected. Also, he was connected before he realized it. But it didn't happen, at least in his case, it didn't happen like by itself. He worked. As we know, he worked. Depending on sources, he worked pretty hard. That of course doesn't mean that every one of us has to copy him. Copycats. And that's something that people at some point start to think maybe that perhaps I don't have to follow these rules so much because it's a little bit stupid to kind of put things in the box and follow, because fundamentally we are free. And that's kind of a never-ending subject, actually. We can go back and forth and think about or argue if we need what color of incense stick we should have, or. But those also, they are secondary things. I said one day, I said that this becoming aware, becoming awake is sort of a human potential. And that's it, not so much not so much to do with superpowers or such. But I also want to mention that according to legend, when Buddha had come through this gateless barrier, gateless gate, some people noticed it, and as we know, they asked him different questions. Are you this and that? And always he said, no, I'm not that. And in some versions, I remember that he even said that he's not human when was asked, are you human? No. We don't know, of course, if that's what happened, but I don't think that he meant that he's someone from another star. Suddenly, he realized that he's coming from the Jupiter, or was it the Venus star? So it was more that he didn't want to give this label. That didn't give a description, really. That wasn't the actual thing. So what he said he said he's awake. He is awake. And that's where, of course, Buddha comes, this word Buddha. Maybe it was that before Buddhism it wasn't used as a someone who is awake in that sense. Maybe that was Buddhism that started to use it, because before it was like a regular word that describes more practical things, like if you faint or you wake up from the dream. So even if this is our human true potential possibility to, we can still I also like this idea that he said that I'm not even human, if it ever happened, because actually that's also name, that's just name. It's not really, doesn't mean much. Like waking up from the dream. Nansen, Zen Master Nansen, famous Zen teacher, of course, like all these usually are from the book, was walking and talking, probably in the garden. He had a disciple who was a high government official. those high government officials like to be seen maybe with these famous teachers. Maybe he was also a sincere practitioner, but he was a Nansen's disciple, and his name was Rikko. And when they were talking, Nansen said, "Master of the teaching," Jo was this master of the teaching, said, "Heaven and earth and I are of the same root. All things and I are of one substance." So, heaven and earth and I are of the same root. All things and I are of the one substance. Isn't that marvelous? And then Nansen pointed the flower in the garden and asked this official and said, "People these days see this peon. Anyway, it's a flower, as we know. Pioni po finska. People these days see this amazing flower as though they were in a dream. As though they were in a dream that was there talking. Something. By the way, this is a koan. And now I got a little bit suspicious because I had this strange feeling again that I have cut off some lines. I don't know. Anyway, enough words for one koan. But what is beautiful here is this legendary line, heaven and earth, one root, all the myriad things, one body, all the myriad things, one heart. Maybe it's even so that these beautiful lines, this extremely beautiful in my mind, heaven and earth and I are of the same root. All things and I are of one substance, one body. We can repeat them because they are so marvelous. They give so beautiful image for us that even just by reading them and repeating them, we might get we become a little tipsy. We don't have to. I mean, that's how we do it. What is it called? This Zen, like when you have this Zen book next to your bed. There is this little, like, what is it called if you are that kind of Zen practitioner, that you take few words here and there and now and then. And it's a little bit like that. These beautiful words. So we don't know why this Nansen is just borrowing those lines, or he's not really borrowing, he's just telling them to this official person. Maybe he's just giving some beautiful lines, or maybe he's somehow testing, because after all, this Rikko is his student. This dream that people sees, this flower, these days, as though they were in a dream, and then we have this Buddha who is awake. So what has this to do with that. We also say sometimes that life itself is a dream. Everything is, in a way, dream. So if people sees this flower as they were in a dream, what does it mean? Introduction for this koan starts like this. When the action of the mind is stopped and swept away, the iron tree will bloom. Can you demonstrate it? And then we people like to argue also that action of the mind is, it can't be stopped or swept away, because then we would be brain damaged. But maybe it would be say so that when the action of my special separate mind is stopped and swept away, the iron tree will bloom. Then there is a verse. Hearing, seeing, touching, and knowing are not one and one. Mountains and rivers shouldn't be viewed in the mirror. The frosty sky, the setting moon at midnight. With whom will the serene waters of the lake reflect the shadows in the cold? This is heavy poetry, man. This is. But these flowers, there has to be some reason why we have them also on the altar. Flowers are, through the centuries, people have been collecting them and growing them, and maybe it's maybe it's so in our DNA that we can read flowers. Without even thinking, we understand that they are like us. First there is this little, almost unnoticed little seed. And then when it gets what it needs, then there comes this new life. And if this new life is nurtured long enough and with right amount of right minerals and water and such, there will be bud one day. And then we know that some blooming is probably, there is a little bit of hope that one day we will see a real flower. And if condition is still getting as it should, the flower will be there. And it will bloom. It will bloom. And this flower doesn't. When flower starts to bloom, it doesn't ask if you are looking at it or not. It will bloom anyway. It doesn't matter if no one is seeing. It doesn't matter if this flower is up in the remote hill or beside the road where no one will notice it. If it's a kind of a highway and people are driving 200 kilometers per hour, it will bloom anyway. It will bloom until it can't bloom anyway. Until it dies. But while it is blooming, it is obvious that it is blooming. It gives everything. It gives, if it has fragrance as they have, it will give everything away without asking anything back. When I was youngish, I was young, teenage, so I was somehow interested in flowers very much. I had maybe 100 like indoor plants in my room at one point. And I had even an archive, and every plant had its own card, and I wrote their Latin names, and I made some observations and I wrote there. And I made pictures of, I planned to build up a greenhouse in my room. And actually I did. But it wasn't as big as on the paper. On the paper it was like a jungle, and there were like lakes and rivers and mountains. But what I had was really little greenhouse that I could go in and out, and it had a door. It's a little bit strange guy, I would say. And I had some orchids there, and they were really, there's something comforting, I would say, to take care of flowers and plants in general. Perhaps because they can't run away. I mean, you really have to, they are really vulnerable, we could say. There is a verse, poem in one koan where the Buddha is holding up a flower. This is a famous incident that took place 2562 years ago, when legend tells us that Mahakasyapa became sort of a Zen successor of Buddha. Of course, that's just legend. Zen didn't exist in a real sense, but of course in a deeper sense, Zen was very much alive. In a way, the verse goes like this: holding up a flower. Holding up a flower, snake. The snake shows its tail. Kashyapa smiles, and people and devas are confounded. Also these verses and commentary and can be worked as koan, or are worked as a koan. So people working with this has to come up with some sort of understanding or non-understanding, or some kind of real awakened action. So I'm a quite big fan of koans, because they really are those trains that can take us somewhere we haven't been. But this snake that protected Buddha when Buddha was sitting under the tree, just before he could see this, the snake was there protecting his time. So what is, if we take this snake and we take this flower, what they have common? So we have still a few precious round of Sesshin left. And I guarantee that anything is possible within these some hours we still have left. If we just look hard, if we just listen hard, if we just... It's so close, it's so close, it's so damn close. Now we know it's not anywhere else. It is everywhere, it is shining and shouting everywhere. It's too simple. That's why we have doubts. It can't be this simple. It can't be this simple. It has to be something different. Buddha didn't hide the truth when he was holding up a flower. Thank you for this time, and now we will finish and we make 3 prostrations.